And there are other problems with the science. The gold standard of science for radiological effects is what's called the atomic bomb studies. It was done in Japan after the atomic bombings. The Hiroshima bomb was a uranium bomb. The Nagasaki bomb was a plutonium bomb. 5 years after that happened, the US Army, the occupying army, started a scientific study. Well, I asked what happened in those 5 years and how, that was not included in the study. And we see this in Chernobyl too. There's a vested interest in you not being identified as an affected person. Do you want to marry a woman who's been irradiated or not? So do you want to tell the truth about what your exposure was or not? So these are problems with what is our gold standard of understanding today. Now, the National Academy of Sciences did issue a report in 2006 called The Biological Effects of Ionizing Radiation. It's report number 7 of this series. And in that, they do say that all exposure to radioactivity increases your health risk, and that all exposure is cumulative over your lifetime. So there's no safe dose. Yet, if we fast forward a few years, the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation has the rather Orwellian acronym of UNSCARE. It has issued its summary of its report on the health effects of Fukushima. And it's looked at 1 year of data. And it says there are no discernible effects from Fukushima. It says that the radiation levels are barely above background radiation. And it says the biggest health effect really is that people are worried about radiation. Now, I have some gripes with this, and I've actually been working with a group of us have developed a critique of this study. One problem is that you wouldn't expect to see anything at the end of 1 year. You wouldn't expect to see thyroid cancer, the first one that you'd expect to see present itself, till 2 or 3 years after the accident. So they went out at 1 year and looked, and guess what? They didn't find anything. So this makes me bring up the whole notion in this topic we're talking about of looking at truth versus honesty. What UNSCARE said is, within the parameters of what they did, actually true. But is it really honest? So let me wrap up here talking about proliferation. As I mentioned Iran already, that reactors are the way to create bombs. It also is the way to maintain the infrastructure. It's not socially acceptable for President Obama to go before Congress and say, I need a lot of money to build new nuclear bombs. But he can go before Congress and say, I need a lot of money for nuclear reactors to solve climate change, which, by the way, it can't do. But that's okay. But it's the same college courses. It's the same, industrial setup to get you the uranium as the bomb makers are needed. Now, clearly, the two paths are not absolutely the same. You do go in different directions for bombs or power, but there's a lot of overlap. And nuclear weapons are still the centerpiece of our defense policy. Even though President Obama in Prague said he wants to get rid of nuclear weapons, when he said, but maybe not in my lifetime, that's where I fell off the wagon with him. We didn't get to the moon by President Kennedy saying, let's go to the moon when we can kind of get around to it. No, he said, this is something we have to do with great urgency. And so I think for nuclear weapons, we need that same sense of urgency. So every day that a reactor is operating, we're producing more radioactive waste. No country on the face of the earth knows what to do with it. And I talked about Yucca Mountain already. So we have to assume that the waste that's at Palisades or Cook or Fermi 2 is going to stay there for the foreseeable future. So we need to learn how to deal with this in the best way possible. Now, what can we do about this? First of all, I'd say let's guard the taxpayers' money. In Michigan, I mentioned that construction work in progress was tried once. The Michigan Public Service Commission denied the request, but it would not be surprising if Detroit Edison tries to get into the ratepayers' pocketbooks once again. So that's something that you can talk to the state legislators about. The call to shut down Palisades, that's something that you could approach Senators Levin and Stabenow about. Stabenow is on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which does have some oversight of such things. But even more importantly, I would suggest that she's on the Agriculture Committee. And when I had the great pleasure of entering the state of Michigan, and I noticed that even on your license plates it says Pure Michigan. Nice, pretty color of blue, and I love Michigan and the many different parts I've seen of it. But I'd like to see a picture of the Pure Michigan sign and a picture of a nuclear reactor, and it would say, choose one, because you're not going to have both. So I think to talk to your legislators about this. The other thing you can do is join a group. There's the Michigan Safe Energy Future, which has a chapter here in Kalamazoo. Beyond Nuclear, which Kevin's with, is a wonderful organization, beyondnuclear.org. Tremendous amount of information there. And then the organization I'm with, Physicians for Social Responsibility, psr.org. Another website where you can get a lot of information. We welcome you to join us in this effort to protect our environment and ourselves, our families. And if you want to contribute some money, that would be nice too, because we need that. Now, I would like to take just a moment to ask Stephanie Dernick to just mention briefly some other PSR activities here in Michigan.
Thank you, Alfred. Before we take some questions, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do here in Michigan. So I've been here for the last 6 months. As it was mentioned, I'm out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, so just up the road a little bit. But I'm glad to be down here and meeting you all folks. I haven't been down to Kalamazoo yet, so making some connections with some old PSR members in the audience, and trying to create new members as well. So, you know, we were talking about nuclear energy, and that is certainly something that PSR has been working on since before I was born, and have done some really great work on. But here in Michigan, companioning with the nuclear energy fight, we're working on the rest of where our energy is coming from. So Michigan is leading the country in how much coal we use. And one of the staggering parts of not only do we use upwards of 60% of our energy comes from coal, but also none of that coal is from Michigan. So we are importing billions of dollars worth of money that could be, you know, making jobs here in Michigan. So part of what our work is doing is trying to close down those coal plants. We know that coal plants contribute to asthma, heart disease, strokes. It contributes to 4 of the 5 leading causes of death here in the U.S. So we really think that coal plants is a way that we can make some strides here in Michigan. And where's the bright side? Well, we do have options. We do have opportunities. And if we were to create and shift our energy platform to more renewable energies, solar, wind, we could create billions of dollars worth of jobs. So those are our real targets for this coming year in 2014, is to close the coal plants and shift our energy plan here in Michigan. So we'll be in the back, and we'll be happy to talk with you all about some of these issues. I also have a brochure with my contact information. So thank you for coming out tonight, and I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Just to link what Stephanie was talking about, coal, with the nuclear issue, I do want to mention a 2007 book titled Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free, a Roadmap for U.S. Energy Policy, written by Dr. Arjun Makhijani of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research. This book assumes the U.S. standard of living. Now, I don't know how many of you know that in Europe, the per capita use of electricity is half as much as it is in the U.S. But hey, we all know that life in Paris is only half as good as it is here in Kalamazoo. But this book assumes that we're going to still have this healthy energy diet, or maybe it's overeating, over-consuming energy. And it also assumes existing technology. We don't need some magic bullet to be invented. This lays out a detailed plan about how we can phase out of coal, phase out of nuclear, and still have the lifestyle that we're accustomed to. Written in 2007, that's 7 years ago, the author says that with the advances that have been made in the intervening time, we could do this even faster than the 40 years he talked about doing it in 2007. So I do want to end on a note of hopefulness that there is another way to do this, and it's not pie in the sky. It's not just some nice idea about, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could all use renewables. This is a plan about how to do it.